I'm Rob Downey, a family practice MD and Institute for Functional Medicine certified practitioner. I'm coming to you from Seaworthy Functional Medicine in Homer, Alaska. Seaworthy exists to help people overcome their health challenges and be fully vital. What happens when somebody gets to work with a health coach who has been bringing their A game for quite some time and then increases the yield and the wisdom that comes from the functional medicine certified health coaching experience? Today we are so fortunate to be joined again for the second time on the Seaworthy podcast by my colleague and friend, Carol Comfort. Morning, Carol. Welcome.
Good morning. Hi, Rob. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, thanks so much for being here. What a terrific thing. So I often summarize folks' bios, but in your case, I think it's actually important instead. Your bio really is literally beautiful. And so I just want to share this with people briefly to get a sense of what we get to do today and who we get to be with. Carol has worked for several years here at the clinic as a patient service representative, and then picked up health coaching via functional medicine certified status through Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, has continued on to do that, and that started in 2017. She started her own practice doing one-on-one coaching, both remotely and in person, and then she's lived in Homer since 1985 with her husband, raised 2 independent children on a 20-acre homestead. She's a classically trained pianist. She owns and operates a beautiful music studio in Homer. She's dedicated to her meditation practice, honing her pickleball skills, and many outdoor activities to fill the long Alaskan winter hours. After overcoming a melanoma diagnosis in 2013, she vowed to live her best life possible and loves helping others to do just the same. All right. One thing for folks to know is that Carol and I have both looked at the first time she was on the Seaworthy podcast and been quite pleased with the content there, so don't hesitate to go check that out if you want the 1.0 version. And today we'll pick up years later and start, Carol, by letting us know, how has your perception of your approach to coaching evolved since the last time we had this conversation?
Oh, I love that question. And I also was really surprised to find out that we had recorded that original podcast 3 years ago. I mean, where'd the time go?
I know, yeah. Every day, every moment's precious, isn't it? That's a reminder.
Holy smoke. So when I looked back, like what have I learned or what has changed? I decided everything, because I've changed, and isn't that, how it should be? Mm-hmm. We're not the same people we were 3 years ago. We're usually not the same people we were a month ago. So my coaching has changed in that I realize it's less, it's more about connection with people and less about a structure. So of course, when you just get out of a coaching academy and you've learned all the rules, in a sense, about coaching, what you should and should not do, you're following a bit of a structure, and you're trying to implement that, and then but insert your own personality. Well, now it's just all my own personality. So I realized it's so much about connecting with that human that walks through the door or that picks up the phone, because some of my coaching is remote, and immediately becoming personal with them. And whereas before I might have been a little bit reticent to do that, but also honoring that somebody may not want to share immediately, and there's room for trust to build. So that's something I've learned, and that hopefully everybody that does walk through the door is comfortable, and I can make them feel at home. And usually my enthusiasm for their presence is what makes them more comfortable. You know what I mean? Does that make
Oh,
sense?
yeah.
Because, so what I've noticed is over the last several years is the spontaneous, the hugs that happen on their way out the door, that are initiated by the client, which is so sweet. And then also it's that hug, that spontaneous hug when they walk in the door. And that maybe didn't happen as much in the beginning because I was a little bit unsure, but I'm super welcoming, and I just love that it's about human connection. So if somebody is wanting just to be told what to do or advised and remain removed, probably not going to work with me because I really want to know them. I've become friends with so many of my clients, and although I rarely see them again, I wish I could. It's one of those kind of relationships. So
I hear from folks that benefit from your work, and what's humbling for me and what I really appreciate is you are doing for them what I can't, for two reasons. I'm not a coach, so I benefit from working with coaches because some of the magic dust rubs off and I pick up on some of the ways of helping, but also I think the coaching process is different, and even the whole sort of space that coaching, the energetic space that's created and the coaching lives in, it needs to be different from a medical visit, because a medical visit is prescriptive. It's saying, well,
Right.
if it were me, I would take a look at the inflammatory aspect of high blood pressure or what have you. Whereas when people tell me about the coaching process, they report that they're starting from scratch with you, and where they think it's going to lead and where it does lead aren't the same thing.
completely. That's my favorite part about the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people will come and, they've just seen you, for instance, and they know exactly what they need to work on. But 2 or 3 visits in, they're realizing, maybe we could back up a couple steps and maybe I should work on my stress. That's often what happens. So they come to me for a food issue, but underlying that is they just don't have time to prepare the food. So just uncovering those little details, and those are the weeds I like to get into. You get to get into the weeds of the labs, and I get to, in my mind, I have the fun part. But no, it's so.
We should feel that way about our jobs,
Yeah,
right?
we should.
We have the best job
Yeah,
in the world.
exactly. So, but I like that you pointed that out, that what they come for is not necessarily, they get that, but they get more. And that's the surprise package, Sometimes I wake up in the morning and that's the first thing out of my mouth is, surprise me.
Yeah.
That's the mindset
Yeah.
I like to have.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that mindset within a coaching visit as well. Surprise me.
Yeah.
See how well I, can do with this.
Another thing I objectively would note about the process that I think our audience might benefit from, whether it's working with Carol that we'll talk about at the end of today's visit, or working with a functional medicine certified health coach, is that if I go skiing with somebody who's been skiing for 30 years and then, I ask them what it's like to be on the fall line, and they say, well, I'm just kind of in the flow. Well, there's a whole bunch of backstory to that.
Yes.
And when a coach who's as effective as you are says, well, a lot of what I'm doing is I'm creating warmth and safety and presence in the moment. Part of the backstory is that your many years of meditation and devotion to health and interest in functional medicine come then into the moment and inform you being present in the moment as yourself. To me, it's both, that you're present in the moment and making the interpersonal connection and seeing what happens in the now, informed by years and decades of devotion to being really interested in what are the, where does vitality come from?
Yeah, and it's interesting because before I became a trained certified health coach, I feel like I've coached my whole life in a sense, but it was more like telling my sisters, you should, maybe you should, and sending them cookbooks and this and that. And now it's more, okay, where are you at?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And what's
Yeah.
one small thing that could move the needle? What's just one small thing? So I do like the the skills of motivational interviewing or just
Yeah.
understanding more of what's their style of implementation.
Yeah.
Some are just gung-ho and others are super reticent, and where can I help them with that, the reticence, and get them enthusiastic about trying new things, and maybe where can I bring down or shrink the change for the people that are gung-ho and just want to do it all, and we know that doesn't really work when you just apply everything you know to a situation. So just small actionable items and,
Try to do it all.
yeah, right.
And this is often where we help them the most, I think. This is often where you help them the most.
Well, hopefully, and I don't mean to like burst any bubbles or curb their enthusiasm, but for those people going from 0 to Mach 5 or want to go to Mach 5, I have to rein it in a bit. So, yeah, I do. I love the enthusiasm, and people want to start this, and this, and this, and they have a list of things, and at the first visit, they might just start ticking off the list. And one of the first things is to dial in, like, what's the top 3 things that would most align with what's important to you or your value system, and maybe we've explored that a little bit even before I asked that question. But to shrink the change, like I mentioned, to make our changes small, because when I think about it, in my own life, it's been an entire lifetime of making incremental changes. So why would we expect someone to do this in like my 10-week program or my 2-week program? So just give them maybe their homework, or to create homework, co-create, for the next 2 weeks. Like, what can we just do in the next 2 weeks? And then when they say, I'm going to do my Qigong practice 7 days this week, and then I step in and go, could we just aim for 2? And so it's so funny, because the last time that that happened, and it did happen recently in one of my coaching sessions, the person came back to me and said, oh, thank God you just brought it down to 2, because I nearly had to do those 2 sessions right before I came here today,
Yeah.
because they still never got around to it.
Yeah.
It's going from 0 to Mach 5, it just doesn't work. So is that kind of what you had in mind?
Well, I think it's really important, and we'll see how much we're able to get our arms around it. But even if I don't create a space to convey the concept perfectly, I think it's so important that I want to pause on it a little bit. So I'll speak for myself. I've benefited from being sharing patients with Carol and learning from Carol and about coaching, because it's changed the way I'm on my own functional medicine journey. So a lot of what I'm able to do to help patients or encourage them to get coaching is just what's humbling in my own life or helpful in my own life. So when I set out to say, I'm going to approach this like an Olympic athlete, it's just setting myself up to fail.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, actually, I think probably Olympic athletes, I'm just guessing now, have really good coaches who will tell them also, this is
Yeah.
incremental. You're not
Good
going to
point.
do this week what's going to win the Olympic downhill in 4 years. You're going to do this week what increases your quad strength by 2%.
Yeah, right.
And then we're going to focus on this. And I'm sure the athletes are saying to their coaches, oh, well, my hamstrings hurt, or I've been tired, or I've never had the balance to do that. And the coaches are saying, we've got this, you can do this. And so I think it's actually one of the seeds of not getting where we want to be when we say, I'm going to do it all, because then we feel like a failure when we don't do it all.
Exactly.
And that's not where success
Yes.
is anyway.
No, it doesn't breed any motivation, right? It does not breed motivation. Another thing that kind of goes along with that is, because sometimes we don't have motivation, there's a lot of anxiety, there's some depression, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of distraction for our patients, clients. And so a lot of what I like to do is kind of start with a clean palate, so to speak. It's like do a palate cleanser. Let's take everything off the table and let's only put back what we benefit from. you know, so, and going through a cleanse like that on many different levels is great. Sometimes it's, you know, not just what you eat, or it could be life issues, you know, like let's stop doing and be more. You know, so it's like cleanse, take all the colors off your palette, and let's only put back the ones that serve you. And let's do that really slow but make it fun. You know, and that's what I love to do. That's kind of what's going on in a coaching visit,
Yeah.
you know, because they might come to me with some preconceived ideas like, this has worked, this has worked, this has worked. And I love it if they have a history of what's worked. But, and uncovering that is really important, because we'll use those strengths for the next project. But maybe we need to go at it a different way because we're 10 years older, or we're a month old, you know, so.
And again, I get to see this in the clinic. So I get to see the transformation from I'm stuck, that's what the patient's reporting to me, to I've been working Carol, and now I'm achieving my healthcare objectives. I mean, this would be of intellectual interest otherwise. This
Yeah.
works. What we're
Yeah.
describing works.
Right.
And so as we segue into what people do in between sessions with you, which is part of this Health Coaching 2.0 conversation we're getting to have, then I think that something to flag for our audience is that many of us have this presumption more. And so what work with someone who works the way Carol does results in is what my friend David James Duncan flags as called apophatic learning. We learn by taking away. And that's what a lot of us are actually craving, because a bunch of folks come to me and they say, I can't listen to every podcast by David Perlmutter and Mark Hyman and read every book, and there's no way I can do it all. And the good news is they don't have to.
Right.
And they
Right.
shouldn't. It's just another
Right.
dimension of busyness and overwhelm and should, and then they're in stress to stress mode, and then the rest and digest, rest and restore pathways in the bodies aren't working. So as root cause work, what's happening when people work with Carol is they're getting that relief of not only is it okay to slow down, it's really helpful and necessary, because then you can start to listen to your body. And so that cleanse and starting with a clean palate and all of that, I mean, I'm getting to hear today what people are benefiting from when I don't see them and they're working with you. What happens in between sessions?
Yeah, so really the meat of the coaching experience is the visit. So, and we'll meet for 30 minutes. And we do this, it can be just a one-time deal. Some people just show it's one and done. But typically it's over a 10-week period, and they'll meet with me every 2 weeks, and in person or on the phone. If it's on the phone, lately I've been taking walks and then keeping a notepad and paper. Literally was on the beach the other day. It was a really lovely office space because I was taking notes and coaching. I'm listening, and I find I slow down if I'm in the setting that's relaxing, and also if I'm moving, my brain slows down, and I'm very creative that way. And I think my clients are more creative, so I encourage them to move on the other end of the line if they're not with me, and then if they are in person and it's not icy outside and it's safe, we can go outdoors. Then we walk and talk. But in between session, and so the meat of the session, the meat of the program is that talking and that exchange, and coming up with what do we want to do in the next 2 weeks? What's one small thing, and how are we going to go about doing it? But then we got to implement it, and that's when they can reach out to me. We jump on my coaching app that I subscribe to called Nudge, and they have daily contact with me on Nudge. They can send me photos. Sometimes I snap pictures of, here's what I'm having for dinner tonight, and maybe that'll encourage them to make a clean protein the next day and a side of broccoli, and and another kale thing or whatever, you know. So whatever I'm making, I love snapping pictures and sending it out to my clients. Here's what I'm doing. And then some people say at the visit, can I have some more recipes? And so I'm like, oh yeah. So I've got a load of recipes and I'm like, oh, you'll enjoy this carrot ginger soup. So maybe I'll send it to all my clients. So typically on the weekends, I like to send something inspirational on like a Sunday to think about, a beautiful quote that inspires and maybe motivates or encourages or soothes. And then possibly at the beginning of the weekend, a recipe that they might explore during that weekend. And then midweek, I try to reach out. So I'm reaching out in the app and I just send them some resources and then usually with a disclaimer like, hey, if you never get to this, if it's too much, just ignore it. And on my app, I can see if they open it up or not. And I can see what people are enjoying and what maybe people are just, nah, that's not for me. That's completely fine. I love it. And I get really good feedback about what I'm sending them, and I try to be really careful not to send too much because, like you said, there's a lot of noise, and why burden them? Let's keep it really simple. Yeah, I think that's the other thing I didn't mention in the beginning when you asked, how has my vision of coaching evolved? And the coaching has evolved to more of a simplicity, a place of simplicity, slowing down, giving them a place to pause and to decide if how they're living their lives it aligns with their values. And that's really a fun thing to uncover. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to stop and let that last couple of sentences you shared. If you're listening right now, you might want to just stop and let that sit for a second. It goes back to this is a motif or a thread in who you are and how you work. In our first interview, you said if you had to boil your philosophy down, it would be to slow down.
Yeah, I did, didn't I? I said, I'm still saying it
I am too, and
because I could use that myself.
well, I'm still, yeah. One of my favorite books from my teenage years was Illusions by Richard Bach, and he said, we teach best what we most need to learn.
Darn it.
So,
Yeah.
so I think that what's happening in functional medicine, Institute for Functional Medicine Certified Medical Practitioners, Functional Medicine Certified Health Coaches, is we're living in an overly busy world that's almost like this spell. And so then folks will think the way to break the spell and get healthy is to keep doing whatever is happening, just more of it. And your and my message is, well, let's actually break the spell.
Yeah. and do less.
Let's do less, because there's a part of us, the body knows the way, there's a part of us that knows what we need. I want to see what you have to say about this before we hear what you've been reading. Because again, I think that some of our audience may be saying, this is too good to be true. This can't possibly work. It does. And we'll talk at the end about how you can work with Carol and check it out and decide for yourself. So what I've learned in 17 years of functional medicine is we can think of what's called qualitative, meaning how much, the quality of something and what's the benefit of that. Or we can talk about quantitative, which is the dose or how much. And these actions that people take, thinking about stress distress as part of high blood pressure, or slowing down, or doing one thing, making 7 servings of chia pudding and seeing how they feel in their body after 5 minutes worth of work and 7 meals. It isn't the quantitative benefit that's so powerful. It's the qualitative benefit. Mm-hmm. It's the quality of engaging in the moment with something that the body, mind, and spirit are desiring, or removing something that's getting in the way. And then somehow that breaks the spell and frees the body up and for people to start moving. And I think they're frozen.
And it allows more movement in the direction that they want to go.
Yeah.
When they see one small action or change that they can make, and then they know, okay, I was successful here. So sometimes it's important to just rest in that successful zone. And then maybe it's important a while later to let that ripple effect happen and see where else they could apply that good energy. Maybe it could be applied to, I now have some energy, so I could move a little more. So let's just do a little fitness snack throughout the day that takes 60 seconds. How could you implement that? Where could you implement it? What would you be doing? So, just, you're right. It's about the quality and not the quantity. And I think by slowing down and not taking on too many projects, even when it benefits you and you would benefit from more, it's important to distill it and become more mindful of just that one thing. And I think you learn from that situation and then apply that same mindfulness to the next thing, whenever that might be. It might be 10 weeks later, it might be 2 weeks later. Yeah.
I remember in an interview with Heather Artemis, she said, if we say yes to everything, we can't say yes to what matters most.
That's really good. Yeah. Yeah.
What you been reading lately?
Okay, I am reading a lot so that my people don't have to.
Another benefit to working with you.
Yeah, in that same vein, what I'm reminded of is when you mentioned, like, there's just a lot of noise out there and there's so much information. It's insane. So I too am careful about what I take in, but when I do, I like to share it with my people and then give them an idea of, like, okay, just, a couple chapters of this, that's probably all you need. Or here's my takeaway. Maybe you don't need to read this. Here's my takeaway. So right now, I am reading, are you familiar with Dr. Lee? I think it's William Lee, L.I. And he studies, like, he wrote a book called How to Beat Disease, or How to Beat Disease?
I don't think I know
How
it.
to Eat for, oh lordy, this is bad that I can't. Sorry, Dr. Lee. But anyway, so I'm reading a book about his plan, which he calls Mediterranean. And so it combines, like, an Asian influence with the Mediterranean. But really what he is he's a scientist and a medical doctor that studies the bioactive compounds of every ingredient possible. So, like, in this book, it'll be avocados and all the benefits that avocados do. The next page is carrots, and the next page is broccoli, and he's just taken tons of food items, whole foods, and how they benefit us. So that's really been fun and interesting. So how I might take that information for my clients is to go, hey, I'm reading about avocados today, and here's all the benefits by just adding, a half an avocado to your smoothie in the morning. Maybe so, here's what they're good for, and here's how you can add it to your diet or disguise it if you're not an avocado fan. So okay, that's one book. The other book is about movement, and it's called Why We Move. No, lordy, it's the Starrett's book. Kelly Starrett, I know, is one of the authors.
Yeah.
But it's all about mobility.
Okay.
And remaining mobile as we age. And it's not just for people my age, or it's like, I wish I had this information in my teens and 20s. I'd maybe even be more mobile than I am, but it's super great motivational book on mobility. And it gives you a little test in the beginning of every chapter, like if you can do this, if you're starting at this place, great, but if you're starting a little bit, with some challenges and this hip mobility, for instance, here's what we can do every day to work towards it. So my biggest takeaway from that, in the first 20 pages is we all need to sit on the floor more. Have you heard that? I mean, it's really fascinating. And sitting on the floor, so sitting on the floor just does a whole lot for a lot of joints, right? As you can imagine, than sitting on a cushy couch or a chair. Because we're engaging
Yeah.
all of our muscles
Yeah.
when we sit
Yeah.
on the floor. So if I do watch a program on TV in the winter, I might tell myself I'm going to sit on the floor for the first 30 minutes. Okay, so that book was inspirational. And then I kind of went back to some standards like Joel Furman, Dr. Joel Furman. And I went back to reading, Ornish, Dean Ornish, Dr. Ornish. So I think he's interesting. You know, he had that whole low fat thing going on, but I think he's really got a nice balance now of nutrition, human connection, love. That's a big part of his. He has like a 4-point plan. Anyways, it's fun to read those. I check them all out in my library, and then the ones that really, really speak to me or I want to access again and again, I might purchase. And yeah, no, I love those. I'm always reading. This,
I think similar things might be happening in my work and your work where our personal journeys have been happening for long enough.
Yeah.
They're pretty rich,
Yeah.
pretty dense. And then we're able to, in the moment, kind of take a summary of that and offer the person this conceptual place to land and offer them a menu of things that they can see if they resonate with and
Yeah.
act on it.
Yeah, I love the menu idea, and I've used that before in coaching where I do a 2-week, like it's called Reset and Renew, and it's a program that in the beginning I use the analogy of I'm offering you a buffet, and you're going to be exposed to all these different items on the table, and then at the end of the 2 week and try them, sample these. It is just a sampling, we're not diving deep into it. But at the end, maybe one of these items is something that you want to eat more of, take more. And I do, my other 2-week programs are, one's called Sweet 16, and it's a 16-day like sugar detox, but we work towards eliminating sugar. It doesn't start off with eliminating it. It's more about becoming mindful of where sweets enter our lives, when we reach for them, why we reach for them, and then what we could do to maybe swap it out, and then maybe can we experiment with reducing it on a daily basis, and then can we swap out entirely? So another short course might be on movement and how can we get more movement in our life. So it's really fun to experiment with just a topic, and that's also what I love about coaching is I can create these really fun programs and I deliver them through my Nudge app, and then they can communicate with me, one, private, through that app and say, here's my struggles, and then I can say, oh, have you tried this? And then there's a community opportunity within that program where people can also message the whole group that's working on the same thing. And they find there's a lot of power behind that. We're more accountable and we know other people are doing this with us, not just your coach doing this with you, but a group of people. And then the community can communicate with each other and say, this is what I did today. I walked 2 miles. I normally, never, normally I get 5 minutes of walking, whatever. And then we can encourage one another or be encouraged by other people's successes.
What a powerful tool. So
It's
cool.
super great.
Yeah.
Super great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. I love the 2 weeks. So, some people aren't willing to commit. Like, I don't want to do 10 weeks. I don't have time, or I'm going somewhere and I don't want to work on this while I'm on a trip. Well, I have hints for those two people that want to do that. We can make that work even
Yeah.
while you're traveling. But, some people are like, I just want a little sample. Like, and I'm, okay, what do you most want to sample? Well, I'd love to figure out how to reduce my sweets. So, okay, jump in on my Sweet 16 program.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
Excellent.
fun. And so my goal is to have like one for every month of the year.
Yeah.
That kind of relates to the seasons too.
Oh, nice.
So that sugar one, it's usually
Right.
between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Of course.
Of course. Because then the exciting part about that is they go into the holiday. If we finish it up by about mid-December or so, they hit a reset already, and you're going to think twice about overdoing it.
Yeah.
You're going to limit.
Yeah,
I mean,
your
you might-
relationship with that half a plate of fudge might be different.
It's totally different after 2 weeks. Totally different. I guarantee
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
if you follow exactly what we're doing,
Yeah.
and it's not difficult. I
Yeah.
make it, again, small incremental steps, and a lot of it is just awareness and
Yeah.
becoming mindful.
Yeah.
So I love that. So that's coming up. I'm going to do that. Sweet 16 coming up, and then the new year, of course, renew and reset and renew. And of course, there's always the movement one. There's a stress one. There's a sleep. We focus on sleep. All these short little 2-week programs are pack a punch. It's fun.
Well, as we segue into then how people can connect with you, I just would sort of put it out there to folks that admittedly becoming healthy, becoming vital in the way we want to, yeah, it's work, but it's such a relief that the vibe or the tenor of it can just be fun and joyful and leaning in and engaging, and a relief and working in harmony with ourselves, not gritting our teeth through it or grinding our way through something, or none of us wants to be should on. And so when we should on ourselves, we
Yeah.
typically don't get better. So I think that's a big part of what you can look forward to with Carol is accountability to yourself and others, but the motif is joy and engagement and leaning in, and that it's easier than you might have presumed it has to be.
Yeah. You know what one of my favorite new expressions is that relates to that is momentum, not motivation.
Oh, wow. That's
Right?
great.
Yeah.
That's great. Because I can really relate strongly to that.
Yeah, if once we get engaged in one small piece of this picture of leveling up your health, then we can work. Then we've got momentum.
Yeah.
And to rely on motivation, not usually really effective.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that interfere with that. With
Goes all the
motiv-
way back to BJ Fogg and Tiny Habits
Yeah,
and all that
yeah.
stuff, which again informs your work. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I like to, if we can just get one little, put one real bright color back on the palette that we enjoy, and then we've got momentum to work off of. So that's pretty fun.
What a great last phrase to have resonate in people's minds. So it'll be in the show notes. There'll be
Yeah.
links that people can click on, but what can they expect if they investigate
Sure.
the next step with you?
Yeah, so if they did click on the link in the notes, there's maybe 2 things to look at in the notes. One is my website, which is super brief but fun to look at. But it's really simple. It's a 1-page website, so not a ton of information there, but it does have our former podcast on there, so that's neat because that's also got a lot of good information in it. And also, it has a link to my Nudge app. And the link in the show notes will go straight to a 5-day, it sounds so hokey, a 5-day trial. A 5-day trial with, so what it is it's connecting you in the Nudge app and getting you kind of used to what people can expect in between the coaching sessions, our one-on-one time together.
Yeah.
And so they've got the app, you get the app on your phone and put in that ID that's in the show notes, and then boom, you right away start a little project. And all it is in the beginning is how can we hydrate better throughout the day? And at the end of the day, because a coach is about accountability, I ask you to go in and just let me know. Did you hydrate better today? It's not like, did you get whatever number of ounces? It's all just, did you do a better job? And everyone says that's been valuable. When people segue into a coaching program with me from after that trial, they usually all want to keep the hydration tracker in their program.
And they're sweet.
Yeah, it's great. So there you go.
Well, it was gracious how you framed it. It makes me think of my business coach and functional medicine mentor, Dan Kalish. And when I took his class, it was transformative for me to hear that marketing as education and education as service. And so what you and I do in this space is we're driven to serve. And this is part of how we serve. And if we don't make people aware of, I mean, we live in a world that needs these services. And so if we don't make people aware of it, they can't benefit. So from my perspective, that's what we're doing today.
And I'll just add to that, the whole point of becoming a healthier human is so that we can be there for one another.
Yeah,
That is
Yeah.
really the end result.
yeah,
So when we feel good about where we're at and how our body feels and our mind, spirit, we're there for each other.
yeah. Then we can show up for others and show up for ourselves.
Yeah, so
that's what we're after.
which is, I love that part.
Me too. Well, thanks so much, Carol.
Thank you. Yeah, that was fun.
Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the Seaworthy podcast. Seaworthy exists to help people overcome their health challenges and be fully vital. If you think we've earned it, please consider giving this podcast a like, subscribing, and giving us a 5-star rating on the platform of your choice. Thanks.